close to me. You love me right now. I can remember going to sit down and do an interview with Vibe magazine. And I had the young lady who was interviewing me look at me, and she went in on me being older than him. But right after that, she let me know she was, kicking it with him too. After I began to get the accolades, it turned into a love-hate relationship.
24 hours after D'Angelo's death, Angie Stone's last interview confirmed everything we feared. The woman who saved D'Angelo's career had been systematically erased from his story.
His pride as a man would not allow him to do that because he doesn't want to share the credit.
Their son Michael would inherit not just their musical gifts, but the devastating legacy of pride that destroyed Neo Soul's greatest partnership.
The pride is still the gangster in this.
What Angie Stone revealed in her final interview would expose the real cost of musical genius and industry manipulation. So let's get into it. When D'Angelo walked into that New York recording studio in the early 1990s, he was not the smooth operator the world would come to worship. Angie Stone remembered a different man entirely. Overweight, hiding behind baggy clothes, struggling with consistency issues that had frustrated his publishers for months. The D'Angelo she met was talented but directionless, carrying melodies in his head that he couldn't seem to translate into finished songs. His weight and insecurity made him nearly unrecognizable from the symbol he would later become. Jocelyn Cooper and Gary Hess, his publishing team, had grown desperate watching their promising young artist spiral into creative paralysis. They needed someone who could harness his raw talent and channel it into something commercially viable. That someone turned out to be Angie Stone, already established in the industry through her groundbreaking work with The Sequence and Vertical Hold, with a reputation for getting things done when other producers had failed.
The world didn't know him. He had weight on him at the time. A lot of people see him all cut up, and it's just like, look at this fine, gorgeous man. No, he wasn't all of that. When I met him, he was overweight. He was hiding behind clothes.
The connection between them was immediate, but not romantic. Both artists carried the musical DNA of the South in their bones, understanding rhythm and soul in ways that transcended technique. Stone saw past D'Angelo's insecurities to the artist underneath, while he found in her someone who could translate his scattered genius into focused creation. Their collaboration felt natural, almost predestined, as if the universe had conspired to bring together two artists who needed each other's strengths. The publishers had been clear about their expectations when they introduced the pair. They wanted Stone to help develop D'Angelo's craft and get him to actually finish songs. What started as a professional arrangement quickly evolved into something deeper, as hours in the studio revealed their creative chemistry. Stone brought discipline and structure to D'Angelo's chaotic creative process, while he provided the raw talent and innovative ideas that would revolutionize contemporary R&B. The Brown Sugar sessions stretched across months, with Stone becoming D'Angelo's creative anchor and emotional support system.
Oh, sugar, when you're close to me, you love me right now.
When the album seemed destined to remain unfinished, she made a decision that would haunt their relationship forever. Christmas Day, 1994, found them locked in the studio while families gathered elsewhere. Stone pushing D'Angelo through the final tracks that would complete his debut. She sacrificed her own holiday, her own family time, and her own recording priorities to ensure his album reached completion. Her no-nonsense approach to production filled the gaps in D'Angelo's artistic process. While he could craft melodies and arrange sounds in his head, Stone provided the discipline and structure needed to translate those ideas into completed songs. She became his creative translator, turning his abstract concepts into concrete musical reality. The album that emerged would launch D'Angelo to stardom, but the woman who helped birth it would find herself systematically written out of the narrative that followed. The irony was devastating and would set the pattern for everything that followed. Stone had sacrificed her own Christmas her own recording project, and her own priorities to ensure D'Angelo's album reached completion. The industry executives who had hired her to work with him began spreading word that he couldn't finish anything without Angie in the studio. What was meant as praise for her abilities became ammunition for D'Angelo's growing resentment and the beginning of their professional destruction. The relationship between Angie Stone and D'Angelo began shifting from professional to personal as their musical connection deepened into something more intimate and complex. Stone was clear about the progression. It happened naturally, born from shared understanding and genuine affection that grew during their countless hours creating music together. But the age difference would become a weapon the industry used against her with surgical precision, turning what should have been a celebration of their connection into a source of constant controversy.
He pursued me. I did not pursue him. I thought he was older than what he was because he had an old soul.
What started as friendship evolved into love, but the timing couldn't have been worse for their future together. Just as their personal relationship was solidifying, D'Angelo's career was exploding in ways that would change everything about how the industry viewed him, and by extension, her. Brown Sugar's success transformed him from struggling artist to industry darling. And with that transformation came pressures and expectations that neither of them had anticipated when they first fell in love. The first signs of trouble appeared in media interviews, where Stone began experiencing a pattern of hostility that seemed coordinated and deliberate. Music journalists, particularly women working for major publications, began targeting Stone with unusual aggression and focus. The questions weren't about her music, her career achievements, or her artistic contributions, but focused obsessively on her age and relationship with D'Angelo. The pattern was too consistent and too vicious to be mere coincidence or normal entertainment journalism.
I can remember going to sit down and do an interview with Vibe magazine, and I had the young lady who was interviewing me look at me, and she went in on me being older than him. But right after that, she let me know she was, kicking it with him too.
Stone would later discover the disturbing truth behind these hostile interviews. Female journalists and industry executives were pursuing D'Angelo themselves, using their professional positions to attack his actual girlfriend, while positioning themselves as more suitable alternatives. The Vibe magazine interview became emblematic of this pattern. A journalist openly admitting she was involved with D'Angelo, while simultaneously attacking Stone for the same relationship, revealing the jealousy and professional misconduct that was driving the media narrative. The industry's treatment of their relationship revealed deeper truths about how Black women artists were viewed and valued in the entertainment business. Stone's contributions to D'Angelo's music were acknowledged when convenient for industry insiders, but dismissed when they threatened the narrative of his individual genius. Her age became a constant topic of discussion, while his talent was celebrated without context or acknowledgement of the collaboration that had made his success possible. Meanwhile, D'Angelo was experiencing his own transformation that would ultimately drive a wedge between them. The shy, overweight artist Stone had fallen for was disappearing, replaced by someone increasingly conscious of his growing sex appeal and market value. The physical transformation that would later shock the world with the Untitled video was already beginning, and with it came changes in how he viewed their relationship and its impact on his career trajectory.
I wasn't old when I was trying to help him get through the studio work. I wasn't old when I was trying to get them albums finished. I wasn't old when I was writing them hits with them.
Stone found herself caught between multiple destructive forces that were beyond her control. The industry wanted to minimize her influence on D'Angelo's success while maximizing their access to him as a marketable commodity. Female competitors used their professional positions to undermine her personally, while advancing their own romantic interests. And D'Angelo himself was beginning to question whether their partnership made him appear dependent rather than talented, a perception that would poison their relationship and destroy their future together. The transformation of D'Angelo, from struggling artist to global symbol, marked the beginning of a calculated campaign to erase Angie Stone from his narrative. What she witnessed during this period was not random industry politics, but a coordinated effort to rewrite history and eliminate her contributions from the story of neo-soul's most important breakthrough album. The machinery of entertainment had decided that D'Angelo's image required him to appear as a singular genius, rather than someone who had benefited from collaboration and support. The physical changes in D'Angelo came first, part of an intensive transformation that would eventually produce the sculpted physique that shocked the world in the untitled video. But the psychological changes proved more dramatic and devastating to their relationship. The insecure artist Stone had originally worked with began adopting the confidence and swagger that his new image demanded. And that transformation came with a growing distance from the woman who had known him before his metamorphosis.
The minute he decided to become a symbol, or the industry cultivated a symbol, I became dog meat to them.
Stone watched as marketing teams systematically repositioned D'Angelo as available and unattached. The image they were crafting required mystery and availability that couldn't coexist with a committed relationship, particularly one with an older woman who had witnessed his vulnerabilities and contributed to his success. The industry needed D'Angelo to appear as a self-made artist and fantasy, not someone who had been developed and supported by a more experienced woman. The cruel mathematics of entertainment became crystal clear to Stone as she experienced systematic exclusion from D'Angelo's professional world. Sessions that had once included her as a creative partner suddenly became closed affairs. The man who had relied on her musical instincts and production skills was now surrounded by advisors who saw her as an obstacle to maximum profit potential and image control.
The pride is still the gangster in this.
Industry executives began openly discussing the need to distance D'Angelo from his past associations, particularly those that might complicate his marketability. Stone's age, her previous success, and her intimate knowledge of D'Angelo's creative process made her a liability to the fantasy they were trying to sell. The woman who had helped create his success was now seen as a threat to its continuation. The personal impact on Stone was devastating and multifaceted. She had invested emotionally, professionally, and financially in D'Angelo's success, sacrificing her own career momentum to ensure his breakthrough. Watching him distance himself as his star rose felt like betrayal, compounded by ingratitude, made worse by the knowledge that his success had been built on the foundation of their collaboration. Stone began experiencing professional retaliation that extended far beyond her relationship with D'Angelo. Industry figures who had once courted her for projects began avoiding her calls. Recording opportunities disappeared without explanation. The message was clear. Association with D'Angelo's past was now toxic, and anyone who threatened his new image would face consequences.
When people zoom in on you to bring about their pain, they don't care how they hurt you to get it done.
D'Angelo himself was struggling with pressures that he wasn't equipped to handle. The shy artist Stone had known was being asked to embody confidence and magnetism that felt foreign to his actual personality. The industry's demands were creating internal conflicts that would eventually contribute to his later retreat from public life. But in the immediate aftermath of Brown Sugar's success, he was caught between gratitude for Stone's contributions and resentment at how those contributions were perceived by others. The age difference that had been irrelevant during their private courtship became a constant source of public scrutiny and industry manipulation. Media coverage focused obsessively on Stone being older, as if her maturity invalidated the authenticity of their connection, or suggested manipulation rather than genuine love. The narrative being constructed suggested that D'Angelo was somehow trapped or taken advantage of, rather than in love with, a talented woman who understood his music and had helped develop his career. The accolades for Brown Sugar's completion created a public relations nightmare that would ultimately destroy the relationship between Angie Stone and D'Angelo. What began as industry recognition for Stone's crucial role in finishing the album evolved into a narrative that wounded D'Angelo's pride and threatened the very foundation of their partnership. The praise that should have celebrated their collaboration instead became a weapon that drove them apart and exposed the toxic dynamics of ego and credit in the music industry. Music industry insiders had watched the Brown Sugar sessions with fascination and growing concern about D'Angelo's work habits. His talent was undeniable, but his inability to complete projects had become legendary among producers and executives. When Stone entered the picture and suddenly tracks were being finished on schedule, the connection was obvious to everyone involved in the creative process. Studio personnel, engineers, and executives began openly crediting Stone with providing the structure and discipline that D'Angelo's genius had been lacking.
Remember, people that hired me to work with you, all those people were running their mouths and saying stuff like, he's not going to get nothing done unless Angie in the studio. So enough people said enough of that the industry started to look at, oh, she's doing this.
The praise that was meant to honor Stone's contributions became poison in D'Angelo's ears and a source of professional humiliation. Every compliment about her organizational skills felt like criticism of his creative process. Every acknowledgement of her role in completing the album suggested he was incapable of finishing work independently. The industry's well-intentioned recognition of Stone's value was inadvertently undermining D'Angelo's confidence and self-perception as an artist. Stone found herself trapped in an impossible situation that had no good resolution. She hadn't sought credit for her contributions and had never tried to diminish D'Angelo's artistic vision, but she couldn't deny her role when directly asked by industry professionals who had witnessed her work firsthand. The executives and producers who had hired her were proud of the results and wanted to publicly acknowledge her role in achieving them, not understanding how their praise was affecting D'Angelo's psyche. But D'Angelo was experiencing the recognition differently than intended. Instead of hearing acknowledgement of Stone's talents, he heard implications about his own limitations and professional inadequacies. The comments about needing her in the studio to complete work felt like public humiliation and professional emasculation, suggesting his artistic gifts were insufficient without her practical support and creative guidance. The transformation in D'Angelo's attitude was swift and painful for Stone to witness. The man who had been grateful for her support and had pursued her romantically became resentful of the perception that he needed her professionally. Pride overrode gratitude as he began to view their creative partnership as professional embarrassment rather than artistic collaboration. The love that had grown from their musical connection was being poisoned by ego and industry politics.
After I began to get the accolades, it turned into a love-hate relationship.
Industry powers recognized the growing tension and began exploiting it for their own purposes. Some executives preferred D'Angelo as a solo entity, easier to control and market, without the complication of acknowledging Stone's contributions or managing their relationship dynamics. They fed his insecurities about being seen as dependent, encouraging him to distance himself from the woman who had helped make his success possible, while positioning themselves as his primary advisors and supporters. The cruelest irony was that Stone's work ethic and professional competence, the very qualities that had attracted D'Angelo and saved his album, were now being used against her in the court of public opinion and industry perception. Her ability to finish projects made D'Angelo look inadequate by comparison. Her industry connections and reputation threatened his image as a self-made artist who had achieved success through pure talent rather than collaboration and support. Stone watched the relationship deteriorate in real time as D'Angelo's resentment grew and infected every aspect of their interaction. Conversations that had once been about music and love became charged with unspoken accusations about credit and recognition. The creative chemistry that had produced Brown Sugar was being systematically poisoned by pride, ego, and industry manipulation that turned their greatest strength as a couple into their most destructive weakness. The birth of Michael D'Angelo Archer II should have represented a new beginning and permanent bond between Angie Stone and D'Angelo. Instead, it became another battlefield where pride and industry politics complicated what should have been straightforward co-parenting. Stone found herself fighting to maintain any relationship with a man who seemed determined to prove he didn't need her for anything, including raising their son and managing his musical development. D'Angelo's refusal to collaborate with Stone professionally began extending into their personal relationship as co-parents, creating a toxic dynamic that affected their child's upbringing. The man who had once relied on her musical instincts and creative guidance now seemed allergic to any suggestion that he might benefit from her input about anything, including their son's obvious musical talents and career development.
His pride as a man would not allow him to do that because he doesn't want to share the credit.
Stone understood the psychological mathematics of what was happening to their family. The industry constantly asked when she and D'Angelo would work together again, recognizing the undeniable magic they had created with Brown Sugar and wanting to capitalize on their proven chemistry. But D'Angelo's pride wouldn't allow him to risk having another successful collaboration attributed partially to her influence, even if that meant sacrificing potential career opportunities and damaging their family relationships. The psychological warfare was exhausting for everyone involved, especially their son, who was caught between two talented parents who couldn't find a way to collaborate effectively. Every potential reunion was analyzed through the lens of who would get credit for any resulting success. D'Angelo seemed convinced that working with Stone again would diminish his artistic standing, as if acknowledging her talents somehow reduced his own worth in the eyes of the industry and public. Their son Michael inherited both parents' musical gifts, but also the complicated legacy of their relationship and the industry politics that had destroyed their partnership. Stone watched D'Angelo struggle to embrace their child's talents, while maintaining distance from any suggestion that her influence was necessary or beneficial for the boy's musical development and career preparation.
He's a rebel like we are. He wanted to do his thing, devoid of mom and dad. And guess what? I have to stand back and stand out of the way because I trust his DNA.
The pattern was heartbreaking and tragically familiar to Stone. D'Angelo seemed incapable of separating his professional insecurities from his personal relationships and parental responsibilities. The pride that prevented him from collaborating with Stone also interfered with his ability to co-parent effectively, as if acknowledging her positive influence on their son would somehow validate the industry's perception that he needed her guidance and support. Stone found herself in the impossible position of wanting the best for both D'Angelo and their son, while being treated as a threat to both their individual development and artistic authenticity. Her attempts to support their child's musical education were viewed with suspicion, as if her involvement would somehow taint the boy's authentic connection to his father's legacy, or suggest that success required her intervention. The professional separation had created personal distance that affected every aspect of their relationship and family dynamic. Stone could see D'Angelo's immense talent and potential, but also his self-destructive pride and inability to accept help, collaboration, or even basic co-parenting cooperation. The man who had once trusted her completely now seemed to view her as a competitor rather than a partner in raising their gifted son. Industry observers continued to lament the loss of their creative partnership, understanding that some magical combinations can't be replicated or replaced artificially. But D'Angelo's psychological need to prove his independence had become more important than any potential artistic success, commercial opportunity, or family harmony that might result from collaboration.
I think D'Angelo, however, he's got to come around and say, okay, I believe that he knows his son is talented, but where we are in our life, we'll just have to wait on it.
Stone realized she was watching a pattern of self-sabotage that extended far beyond their relationship and was affecting D'Angelo's connections with other artists, producers, and industry professionals. The pride that had cost him their partnership was systematically costing him other opportunities and relationships, creating a cycle of isolation that would eventually contribute to his retreat from the music industry and public life. In what would become her final major interview before the car accident that claimed her life in March 2025, Angie Stone broke her decades-long silence about the full extent of her relationship with D'Angelo and the industry machinations that had systematically destroyed their partnership. The revelations she shared painted a devastating picture of betrayal, manipulation, and erasure that went far beyond simple romantic dissolution or creative differences. Even her songwriting contributions had been minimized or erased from official records. Stone revealed that her voice appeared on tracks that were later attributed to other artists, including the song Paradise that circulated online as a Mary J. Blige and D'Angelo duet, despite containing Stone's lead vocals and background harmonies throughout the recording. The pattern of erasure had continued even after D'Angelo's death in October 2025. Media coverage of his passing mentioned Stone only as the mother of his child, without acknowledging her musical contributions, creative partnership, or the crucial role she had played in his career development. The woman who had helped create his breakthrough album was reduced to a footnote in his obituary, stripped of her artistic identity and professional accomplishments. Stone's final words about D'Angelo revealed a woman who had made peace with the past, while still carrying the pain of what could have been achieved if pride and industry politics hadn't intervened. She acknowledged his immense talent while lamenting the stubborn pride that had prevented them from creating more music together. The love was still evident in her voice, but so was the exhaustion from years of fighting for recognition and respect.
God gave us that. And what you should do, if nothing else, is to put your differences aside. You have children. And say, let's get in this studio and work on our God-given craft.
The industry's treatment of their relationship had created ripple effects that extended far beyond their personal lives and affected multiple generations. Stone's career trajectory had been permanently altered by her association with D'Angelo and the industry's need to minimize her contributions to his success. Both artists had paid a steep price for their connection, but Stone's costs had been largely invisible to the public until her final interview. Stone's decision to finally tell her complete story represented both vindication and closure. After decades of watching her contributions minimized and her role erased from music history, she was claiming her rightful place in the narrative. The woman who had helped birth neo-soul's most important album was finally speaking her truth about the real cost of that creation and the pride that had destroyed everything they could have built together. The timing of her revelations, coming so close to both their deaths, felt like a final gift to their son, Michael, and to music history itself. Stone was ensuring that the real story would survive, even if the people who lived it would not. The pride that had destroyed their partnership could not erase the truth of what they had created together during those magical months when love and music were enough. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.